And U.S. President Joe Biden is set to visit Florida to survey damage from a major hurricane. That's after Florida senators demanded the White House prioritize disaster relief over Ukraine aid.
No matter how anybody feels about Ukraine funding, those two things should never be one for the other. When it comes to taking care of Americans in harm, that should be the priority.
We've had enough with Washington playing politics and demand that Congress does what's right for American families, starting with ensuring our federal government has all the resources it needs to show up after disasters now and in the future.
The Federal Emergency Management Agency's disaster fund is approaching exhaustion and being forced to restrict spending on life-saving measures and emergency services. The agency has requested for money to manage current natural disasters in the country, while the White House asked Congress for additional aid for Ukraine. Meanwhile, Washington is working hard to make the case for pumping more U.S. dollars into Ukraine.
Even Americans who have no particular interest in freedom and independence in democracies worldwide should be satisfied that we're getting our money's worth on Ukraine investment. For less than 3% of our nation's military budget, we've enabled Ukraine to degrade Russia's military strength by half. We've united NATO and caused the Chinese to rethink their invasion plans for Taiwan. We've helped restore faith and confidence in American leadership, moral and military, all without a single American servicewoman or man injured or lost, and without any diversion or misappropriation of American aid.
Hurricane Idalia flooded parts of the Carolinas and Georgia after reportedly leaving at least 2 people dead in Florida. The hurricane swept across the state at speeds of over 200 kilometers per hour, leaving nearly 300,000 people without electricity. In Charleston Harbor, the tide reached heights of nearly 3 meters, the 5th highest level in the town's history. Although there's no exact figures on the death toll and destruction, reports suggest that damage is nearing the $10 billion mark. Here's what some locals had to say.
To be honest with you, I woke up this morning just in complete shock. I never seen anything like this. As I rode through town trying to get to my house, you see trees uprooted, power lines, laying in the road, and it's just it's pretty devastating. It took a toll on this town.
Idalia came through, and it was just flooded all over this place, and the whole street was flooded. And now it's kind of calmed down a little bit. It's kind of came back into the bay over there. But I mean, trees, there's limbs falling, and there's dirt all in the road, and there's everything going on. But I mean, it's kind of almost back to normal now, so I think we should be good. But it was kind of a little scary there for a little bit.
I hear literally my fan go off, and I said, okay, the power went off. That could be the worst case scenario. And then I open my door, and I see a river outside.
The Florida disaster isn't the first the U.S. has seen in the last month. Earlier, devastating fires in Hawaii killed 115 people and destroyed more than 2,000 buildings in Lahaina. Biden's aid offer of $700 per family drew widespread criticism online after the president's arrival in Hawaii. A former Democratic Hawaii representative slammed the amount as a slap in the face. Biden later approved $8.2 million in financial aid to households in Hawaii, but Americans again criticized the president, comparing it to billions in funding for Ukraine. Former CIA analyst Larry Johnson believes that the situation around funding shows a growing discontent among U.S. politicians over the way money is being spent.
The Biden administration is showing no signs whatsoever of easing up on its financial support for Ukraine. But they recognize as well that there's growing political disaffection with continuing to just pour endless amounts of military aid and financial support into the government in Kiev. This has become, it's not just Florida. The wildfire in Hawaii that caused, an enormous loss of life is still being, it's been mishandled by the Biden administration. They were offering $700 per person, whereas they're providing billions to Ukraine. I mean, that's just a very bad look. There's a growing sense among these politicians, many of whom will face an election next year, that they can't continue to pour money vast sums of money to a foreign government like Ukraine while ignoring the needs of their own citizens at home.